Okay.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Founder/CEO Wisdom Podcast, Longevity Edition. Today we've got a special guest with us, Yuri Deigin. He is co-founder and director at Youth Bio Therapeutics Inc. In Toronto. So we're going to talk longevity and all kinds of interesting stuff, topics that are very dear to me. First question, Yuri, how long do you want to live?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. But basically, I don't want to put an expiry date on myself. Just want to live for as long as I enjoy it, as long as possible, and of course, provided that I'm healthy and enjoying the living process.
So what
For
are
as
the
long as I can.
probabilities of like youth not dying?
Well, the probabilities are unfortunately not great. As right now at my age, I have about, I guess, 1 in 200 chance every year of dying, and we don't have any mechanisms yet to stop the exponential increase in this risk. So as I continue living, my chances of dying rise exponentially, and so the chances of not dying therefore decrease exponentially. So unfortunately, right now, the technology to grant me that wish to live for as long as I would like is not there. But we're working on it. A lot of people are working on it. It's a big field. Of course, it's still really small relative to, say, cancer or Alzheimer's fields. But I think we're slowly improving and getting bigger, and hopefully, eventually, this field will eclipse the fields that are trying to deal with the consequences of aging, like downstream consequences, like heart disease or Alzheimer's or cancer. But we're not there yet, but we're getting there. So
What about
baby
the
steps.
recent AI boom? Is because that's a huge, immense hockey stick growth curve, and I think it's going to influence pretty much everything in its passage. The question I have for you is, obviously there's pros and cons to that. Do you think the venue of AGI will be a positive thing for aging, or does it drastically reduces our chances of living because this thing will actually kill us?
Can it be both?
It can.
Yeah,
I think it is both in reality, because there's nothing black or white
yeah,
in this life, right? It's always gray.
exactly. I think the capabilities of AGI are certainly there to solve aging biology and give us the insights into what exactly we need to modulate to maybe completely stop aging, and how to go about doing that, like the exact therapies, because unfortunately our human intelligence hasn't been able to come up with these insights or these technologies yet, which I'm sure AGI, which eventually will be orders and orders of magnitudes more intelligence than more intelligent than humans, will be able to. But of course, in parallel, there are all sorts of existential risks about the AGI alignment, that it just might not care about us or just see us as a nuisance. And at some point, if it becomes entrenched enough and self-sufficient to sustain all the processes that are required to keep it alive, that it might decide that humans are more of a risk, more of a liability than a benefit, and just get rid of all humans. And if it's really smart, it would use this longevity therapy to put some kind of back door or like poison pill into it, and like everybody will think that it's gonna make us all live forever, but at some point it will be like a suicide program, like order 66, kill all humans, and everybody will drop dead without them realizing how smart AGI was able to carry this without our knowledge. But
Yeah, I think it
of course
depends
I'm
on the
joking a
level
little bit.
of intelligence, right? Like us humans, we're not that intelligent. And for example, I will kill a mosquito, but I will pet a dog, right? So that's really short term. I think the AI could act this way, so it will probably like us. Long term, if you believe in aliens like I do, and I think it's pretty ridiculous, people that believe that aliens do not exist, it's completely ridiculous with like all the probabilities and the vastness of this this space. And just from a probabilistic standpoint, I think humans are very egocentric, and we think we're the only intelligent form. I think our subconscious convinces us of that, or us humans were really scared. We don't want to know that there's other life forms out there. So I think that's why a bunch of scientists are like, oh yeah, the math shows that we're alone. No, you're just controlled by your own psychology and evolutionary genes. But that being said, with Fermi's, if you believe in Fermi just a little bit, I think that very intelligent life forms, they just don't intervene with us anyhow. So it's like I think, but also that theory is kind to appease my own fear, right? It tells me that, oh, I won't be killed, because everyone has a fear of death. However strong you worked on your own mindset and all of that. What do you think about that one, real quick, before we go like a bit less deep?
Yeah, definitely. We have a lot of psychological baggage that dealing with death, that we just try to push it out and not think about it. And regarding aliens, I mean, yeah, I think mathematically the chances that there are other intelligent life forms in the universe are quite high. Whether anybody is close enough to make contact or come to our planet, I think that's still an open question.
Mm.
There's definitely a lot of like unanswered questions about UFOs, whether those, were actual, aliens or just really some phenomena that could be explained differently.
Yeah,
But
because
yeah, in the context of existential risks, I think aliens would rank pretty low on the things that we can actually do to ourselves, including AGI or just plain old nuclear war. Who knows how close we are
correct. Yeah, I think that's
that.
like way more of a threat, and all the disease, because another, I'm not sure if you agree with that theory, but I believe in the biology side of psychology over pretty much everything. You are energetic because you have caffeine in your blood. You are relaxed because you are high in testosterone and low in cortisol. I believe in the biochemistry theory of everything. That's how us humans, that's how we think, right? So if you are an AGI and you're not restrained anymore by your biology, you don't even have this survival thing anymore. That, like, literally, if you can try to put yourself in the skin of an AGI, you don't have these biochemistry things anymore. So do you want to kill? Do you compete? Right? Are questions that we need to ask yourself. And I think that most likely the answer to that is no. What do you become? It's such an alien concept that I think, well, we can do the mental math, right? And try to build the mental muscle to try to get to a conclusion, but only like physical experiment can get us there. And that's the reason I think that we're not meant to die from this. And the most scary thing to me is human nature. Us humans, were like in a capitalist system right now. We operate on a very much broken model of democracy, in which, like, your neighbor, which is drinking a 12 pack of beer daily, has the same voting power as you, while he has a brain power 10 times less as yours. These things are worrying. I just got off a podcast with a fintech guy, and we talked about chargeback fraud. So people buying stuff and just calling their bank and saying, dude, like, give me back my money. That never happened. People are lying all the time, including the AI researchers and the scientists were so biased. I think that is the great threat. But not to go too much on a tangent here, because I want to focus on longevity. Being the freak that I am, and you're probably that way too. And I guess that a lot of billionaires are that way too. They want to live forever. They want to compete for a long time, or just have fun for pretty much forever. So the goal of that is to do it as long as possible. On one side, there's Ben Greenfield, Dave Asprey, the biohackers, Peter Diamandis, Tony Robbins, that are really into biohacking. And on the other side, well, Peter Diamandis is also on the other side, is on the research side of things, so they're optimizing their body with supplements and all that. Ray Kurzweil also, obviously. And on the other side, they invest in a lot of biotech startups like yours and so forth, to crack aging for once. So me being me, what approach should I take to this? Should I like constantly biohack and Ray Kurzweil style take 75 pills a day, take care of my health and so forth, and probably invest 20% of my energy, my money, and my time into a biotech startup that might crack the code? And if so, in what field should I invest these resources so that I can live forever?
It's a very hard question. And I'm not sure I'm in a good position to give out advice. I mean, I chose kind of this path of trying to go into drug development. But of course, I sort of inherited drug development because I was a drug developer before I became interested in longevity. And of course, yeah, you should be definitely optimizing your health and maximizing your chances of being healthy for as long as possible, just to so that you stick around for all of the great innovations that are certain to come down. Is just the question is when. And if you live long enough to see them, then you just might catch that longevity escape velocity rocket to be able to live for a much longer time. Um, in terms of like biohacking, and there's like so many different regimens and different schools of thought on what is actually effective and what could be detrimental in terms of biohacking, that navigating that landscape, and like, should I take rapamycin, or is it actually like bad for me, or metformin, and even nicotinamide could have detrimental side effects. It's really tough, and I don't kind of envy people who are trying to find the thing that works for everybody. Because, and of course, on a single person level, individual level, you can just experiment for yourself, do the Brian Johnson thing and see what works for you, and have some measurable biomarkers that you can actually observe and make a decision. Does this work? Does this not work? And of course, in that context, it's really hard to decouple things if you're taking 10 different supplements or 100 different supplements, knowing which one actually is net positive, which one is net negative, is a complicated thing. So, and of course, in terms of actually starting your own startup or investing into it, if you have the capability and the finances to do that, by all means, I think, yeah, the more people the longevity field has investigating novel approaches, or just trying existing approaches, trying maybe a different way to translate it, the better, the higher the chances collectively of the field succeeding are. So if you could do it, definitely, yeah. But of course, I realize that people still need to, earn a living and support their families, and there's this life thing that kind of gets in the way of tackling all these interesting problems. So sometimes we just don't have the capability to do these things. So of course, you have to prioritize and not neglect your kind of existing obligations with your life, with your loved ones, your parents, maybe your children, your partners, and so forth. So there's so many different things that you have to take into account to come up with the right strategy for you, that I don't feel comfortable like giving advice.
Sure.
But
One
it's
thing that
definitely
is
important.
pretty obvious though, like with the questions I ask you, well, first on this spot, I always like to charge my question with brains like you, because I know that you can compute them, and I love sparring and growing out of these convos, and one another breaking
Let's
our
do it.
brains so that we can always learn. But one thing that's obvious is that AGI is needed to make better decisions. I ask complex and charged questions. Most people would never be able to first compute them in the first place, and second, as humans we forget, right? So I would see some kind of chatbot in which you could plug all of your data, including your health data, and ask it questions. Obviously, you always have the choice to use or not the bot, right? So that is fine. But I think for humans that want to grow quicker, you could ask it the questions such as, should I use rapamycin? What about NAD plus? What about metformin? Should I invest my time in this and that, and get at least one suggestion, or get a rainbow of suggestion, and then like see all of these suggestion and see what puzzle fits the best your brain with these very charged questions I asked. That's the first thought I had. The second one, talking about biohacking, well, quick comment that metformin is one of the most researched drug out there, and it's incredibly cheap. So I think that's kind of a no-brainer. But again, test it. It's just that, yeah, it's like for me and for a bunch of people, when you take it on an empty stomach, might cause gastric distress, so like take it with food. NAD plus, I'm gonna test it pretty soon, so I tested like pretty much everything in the biohacker book. But my question is regarding Brian Johnson, and again, the coming back to the AGI giving advice. I think the guy's happy, but he has a very odd personality, really go-getter personality, really ambitious personality, really adaptable guy, has a special brain. I think most people would never be able to implement these change in their lives, except like really high level alpha folks. So what do you think about Brian Johnson and the kind, it's not advice, it's like a blueprint and a product that he's trying to build, which is super interesting. And obviously I think the guy understood that he needed to start fighting for his life. Like, and I had that insight also, like me, longevity was like, oh, I'm gonna do it in 20 years, I'm gonna focus on the capitalist side of things first, be a billionaire or trillionaire, and then I'm gonna focus my time on that. But then with all the advances in AI, I realized like shit, yeah, let's do it now, no time to wait. And with other thesis, obviously. So do you think first, what do you think about his business as a general? Because I'd be interested in starting something similar. It's really like social media heavy, building a follower base. And then second, talk about his product, the actual product, right? Is it like a book? Does he want to convert that into a SaaS? And do you think there's potential to it? Right. So we're back, Yuri. That was a really charged question. So what's your broad answer to that complex question?
Yeah, it's an interesting question about, in general, the approach that Brian Johnson is taking. And I mean, huge respect for any biohackers, and in particular to those who are kind of pushing the envelope like Brian is, because so many different interventions, and requires so much commitment and so many changes to your lifestyle, and so many sacrifices of the things that we're kind of used to, taking for granted, the nice things in life. And I think this is almost to a level of like religious asceticism, where people are able to like completely tune out the nice things in life just for the benefit of a bigger goal, which I guess for Brian is trying to push the envelope of how much we can slow down our aging, or maybe even reverse aging with existing methodology, existing things. And so for that, I have huge respect. And I had a similar phase in my life, like biohacking, that I tried a lot of things in parallel, and I couldn't do it for too long. I couldn't keep up. So at this point, I don't do a lot of the biohacking things, just kind of the basic. Even if you consider those things, biohacking is like sauna, exercise, and maybe some basic supplements. In terms of the business, like a consumer business, I haven't dove deep into like what exactly Brian is playing to commercialize the platform. So I'm not sure I'm a good person to comment on that. And I mean, I think social aspect of social following is important for consumer-faced businesses for sure. And I think now also David Sinclair is also moving in that direction with his new initiative. I forget what it's called, but it was just recently announced, and he has all these celebrities coming on. And I think we see a lot more consumer-facing initiatives that I think are just trying to satisfy the growing demand of people who want something now, something that even might have very small differences, but very small benefits in the approaches, but they still want to do something and to feel that like they're improving their health. So from that standpoint, I think that's a business model that Brian might be following.
Yeah. So. Interesting for David Sinclair. I'm gonna check it out. Love both of these guys. Think it's in the end, like longevity is hyper alphaism. It's like, how can I win the game of life? And we're still very much wired to evolution. And I think that's it. And so like, I think it will appeal very much to that similar audience, what Brian Johnson is doing. But a lot of people have been asking for normal folk stuff. So what is the TLDR version of it? I've seen that a lot. Also, another topic pertaining to hyper alphaism is the prices of these companies. They're quite elevated. And why is that? Well, it's for hyper alphas like CEOs to get their blood tested every month for $1,000 a month, for example. Huge respects for these guys, just like you. I think what they're doing is super ambitious and tough as well. I began my career, if you want, in founding my own nootropic company. It's with like avec du recul, like we say in French, with some look back. It was kind of easy, to make a pill, but back in these days it was super hard. And nowadays that I'm trying to get back in the game, I'm analyzing like where I should start. So first I need to avoid analysis by paralysis, but it's still a very complex topic. So there's the Apple Watch, for example, that is trying to scan the blood from an outside perspective. I think like it should be non-invasive ideally, because for many reasons. First, the consumers, and then you need less approvals because regulation's a huge block. And then I tried to go software as well, because building hardware is just a complete nightmare. So I think Brian Johnson is somewhat in the right path, yet it's still super duper complicated. Everything that is biotech is complicated because everything interacts with everything. It's kind of quantum level. I'm interviewing quantum folks nowadays. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of products they're going to deploy, right? Is it going to be a SaaS? How are they going to measure your input, which I think is mostly essential. Then do you want to race against Apple? Apple have stopped innovating since quite a while. So you might have a chance there. I think their next innovation is like the Apple glasses and so forth, which I talked about today. But it's still a very complex topic. And in your case, well, I think you did a good choice, right? Right, your background's in drugs development, and I think drug development is one of the lowest hanging fruit, if you want. I mean, it's incredibly complex still, and I think the clinical study part of it is incredibly limiting. I think we need to reshape that in some shape or form, maybe like at your house kind of study. And obviously it's incredibly tough to factor everything that's happening at their house. And there's a bunch of innovative solutions, but what are you working on right now? And what is the most promising drug that you have identified to bring us to these longevity goals?
Personally, like within our company, we're working on translating partial reprogramming, this approach of using Yamanaka factors for rejuvenation, but using it partially so that the cell remains the same cell type without full reprogramming. That's why it's called partial. And besides ourselves, there's, I think, another probably dozen companies in the space trying to use this approach, trying to take the rejuvenating power of reprogramming and tame it so that the reprogramming doesn't proceed fully, but stops before the cell is actually changed, the cell identity is changed. And so we're working on tissue-specific gene therapies that use reprogramming within the context of specific cell types, and we're trying to rejuvenate those cells, just push their gene expression pattern towards a more youthful state, and hopefully enjoy rejuvenation first on an organ scale, like the organ that is made up of the cells that we target. And then if we can target enough different organs, we're hoping to see organismal, like systemic rejuvenation of the animal that we're treating with our combinatorial therapies. So this is the paradigm that we're taking.
That's quite interesting. And what are your goals in the next 5 years? Do you want to pronounce yourself on that, or is it like still kind of too hard to tell in terms of the data that you currently have?
No. I mean, our goal is within the next 5 years to have therapies targeting several different organs for existing diseases. For example, the brain is our primary interest, and we have a bunch of diseases in the CNS space within dementias or acute diseases like Alzheimer's or Parkinson's. Also acute disease like stroke, for example, helping recovery after stroke, which we think partial reprogramming therapies could help with. Not just think, there's actually existing data in the literature that shows that reprogramming could help increase the healing process after stroke or help recovery after stroke in animal models. And so within 5 years, if all goes well in the translational pathway, we hope to have therapies targeting several different organs for several existing diseases.
Interesting. Yeah, I think we have a hard limit on the pod here, but we definitely need to do a round two just to talk way more about like your business and the future. Was still interesting. So thank you for sharing your mind, Yuri. Where can people find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, happy to do a follow-up. Hopefully we'll have something to report. Me and the company, I mean, personally, I'm on social media. Probably Twitter is where I spent most of the time lately. And the company, Youth Bio, just Google it. Yeah.
All right, I'll follow you back on Twitter, and you'll see some of my weirdest posts there for sure.